So first of all, tell you a bit about who I am, so you at least have some background on what I'm talking about. I had my computer engineering degree, BSMS, from Rochester. After my immediate engineering degree, I went to join Intel in Santa Clara for what's called the rotation engineers program. So there's where you are able to choose any teams you want at Intel, try different things out to see what you like and how the company works. So my approach, a lot of good engineers decide to, of course, go into different product lines. I decided to look at what different product company is about. So I did one rotation for logic designer, CPU design, one rotation for legal patent licensing. So how do we get a patent done? One rotation for strategy planning. How do we do a 10-year plan for product roadmaps? And one rotation for chief of staff for VP of mobile groups. So I want to get a sense of how the company works as a whole. So after that, I became a product marketing engineer. So help to get product to the customer's hands and get feedback. After that, I went to get my MBA at Harvard Business School, which I tried to learn more about how things work. Then during my MBA, I did a summer internship where I joined Rock Internet, which was a startup incubator of sorts for international markets and helped them launch their China operation for Groupon. So I moved over there for a bit with the intention to drop out, continue to work there. But after a few months, I decided, dropping out is not a good idea right now. So I said my goodbyes and came back to finish my degree. After that, I joined Amazon Web Services in Seattle as a senior product manager and helped them launch globally. And I, again, launched AWS China for them to define the product, figure out what kind of things to do. After that, I got sent to China to start their PM team for the Chinese operation. While I was living in Beijing, I got an idea of a startup. So I left Amazon, went to do my startup, did that for about a year or so, did not work out. Just so you know, let me put it out there right now. Did not work out, had tons of fun, but wasn't going to go. So fortunately, Amazon reached out. So I joined them again in New York City, a company called Shopbop, one of Amazon's subsidiary that sells online women's fashion. So I joined them out of nowhere, basically, in New York as their head of Asia, temporarily doing more of a GM role versus a PM role and learning about fashion. Obviously, I'm not extremely fashionable, so I didn't think fashion was my passion. So I came out to Seattle and decided to do more of a tech. So I'm currently a principal product manager at Amazon Alexa. So that's in a nutshell of my past few years of experience. And so quickly, what is product management? A question that we all talk about. And the obligatory cartoon for product management. Not sure people can see on the recording, but basically, he said, I added all the features that each of you demanded, and now our product is a worthless hodgepodge of complexity. So I appreciate all your input. Without you, I would not have failed without you. Teamwork, right? So this is, to me, what product management is not. It is not just stakeholder management. It is not collecting everyone's feedback. If you do everything, you do nothing. Right? You're the product manager. You're supposed to figure out what to do. So what makes a good product manager and what is the role of product manager? There are a lot of definitions out there. I'm sure you've read a lot of it. Some people say you're the CEO of a business or product. Some people say you have a skill set that's a blend of business, UX, and tech. Or you are the glue among cross-functional teams. Not sure how I feel about that part. Or you own the roadmap, long-term vision, identify product market fit. All good descriptions. And the famous chart that we all see online, right? Martin Erickson. So what I would like to think about product management is that you are the one person that should represent customers when the customers are absent. They're not going to be in the room with your engineers. They're not going to be in the room with your marketing folks. And when they do their product design, marketing plan, they don't know what the customers want. So it's up to you to be extremely vocal. Whenever they're not in the room, the customer not in the room, you are the customer. You have to have your customer best interest in mind. Because after all, the key responsibility of a product manager is not building and shipping features. It is solving problems. Right? That's what product managers do. You solve a problem, and to solve that problem, you deliver a feature. So talking about that reminds me of a conversation I had with a good friend in college, kind of a philosophical guy who have those long nights of chats in library about life, about just random things. And one day he told me that, hey, JJ, let's say that you meet God one day, and you can ask God anything. Would you want to know the right answer or the right question? And that got me to think, right? We solve problems. Solving problems requires us to know what the right questions are. If we know what the questions are, we will get answers. We are problem solvers. So personally, I picked the right question. Then with that, what makes a good product manager? If you know Amazon, some of them sound like Amazon leadership principles. I gotta say I borrowed some of that. But I only picked a few and added one more there myself. So one is customer obsessed. You have to always wear the customer's hat. And more importantly, work backwards. What does that mean? Go to the customer, understand what their problems are, and then figure out how to solve that problem. And to solve that problem, as a good product manager, you got to always think about what you want the press to talk about your product, how you want them to talk about your product. But that's what's going to be presented to the customer at the end of the day. So how do you make sure you can work backwards from knowing how it should be presented? Then strong ownership. CEO of the product, the glue, whatever you call that, customer hat. You need to take full responsibility in terms of product success. No excuses. No, don't say stuff like, I'm understaffed, I'm overworked, the company budget didn't come through. That's not the problem. You gotta figure it out, right? You own the product, you own the success, do it. How to do it? What level of success can you reach with the resource you have? Own it, right? Think big, because it's so easy to be caught in your daily fire drills. Oh my God, there's a bug here. Oh my goodness, the event we planned, it's going to be conflicting with a big other event, so we're not getting press time. Think about those, but also try to rise above and figure out how do we maintain a long-term vision of where I want the product to go. That's also very important. So being able to rise above the issues every day and keeping the long-term thinking on is very important. Earn trust, you got to talk to a lot of people, communicate daily, so make sure that you're honest, have integrity, and talk to people. And lastly, just prioritize everything. That's I think a good product manager is like a good CEO where you have to decide where you spend your time and where you don't. So you have to figure that out. So some people call this a CEO mentality. Some people call it founder's mentality. Those are important. But I think there's one more that people don't talk about as much that I care about in particular is a philosopher's mentality. So why philosopher? So if we think about it, so we take one step back, for example, the word culture, which has something to do with international markets now, we know what word culture means, right? The sum of total ways of living built up by a group of human beings and passed down from generation to another. When we think about culture, it's very positive most of the time, right? Diversity, different things, learning from each other, it's all great. But also, can we think more about what the word culture means? If you break down the word culture, it's two roots, right? Cult and and the root of URE means the act, the process, or result. And the word cult is a lot more negative now all of a sudden. So I want to say that, I'm not saying that culture is negative, culture is definitely great. But I want to say that if you break it down a bit, it gives you a bit more of blindly following. People may be doing things without knowing why they're doing it. And people may be telling you things without knowing why they're thinking that way. And it's your job as a product manager to discover why they are thinking that way, to provide them with the best product that will solve the actual problem, which they may not be telling you. Not that they want to lie to you. Sometimes it takes a long time to realize why you think a certain way. Why do I say what I say? So this is why I think, personally at least, philosophy is very important to be a good product manager. So how do you do that? Ask why, right? So one example I used to make is that, so Netflix used to recommend movies based on customer-created watch later list. Customer go in, say, I want to watch this, this, and this, and then based on that, you'll recommend, okay, how about this movie? You may like this movie based on your watch later list. But they realized it didn't work. So, well, it worked, they recommended movies, but people are not clicking on them, people are not watching them, people are not saying that they match their idea of what movies they like. So, good engineers and Netflix, thought about that, tried to figure out what was going on, a lot of research went in, and it turned out a lot of people who put movies on their watch later list include things that are aspirational movies. I would like to watch a World War II documentary one day, watch later. I would like to watch this class one day, watch later. But with their free time, they're going to watch that rom-com, they're going to watch that sci-fi action movie. That's what they prefer. They're not telling you that because they're not just lying to you, they're lying to themselves, but they don't know that yet, right? So ask why. Why does it not work? Or Facebook, I think it was 2006, when Facebook launched news feeds. When it was launched, it was met with a lot of protest. Overnight, there's a Facebook group called Students Against Facebook Newsfeed that gathered close to 100,000 people in protest of the launch of newsfeed, thinking it's not good for privacy. I don't want to look at it. I don't want my news to be shared with people. And of course, we all know newsfeed is still around. It's doing really well, and people really like to use it. Why is that? Because if you think about it, a lot of the 100,000 people who came to the group only found it because they saw it on their friend's newsfeed. Right? It helps. Like you actually use that product. You may not want to admit you use it. Secret sales. That's why it worked. And another example, slightly closer to me, when I moved to New Jersey at age 12, I used to tell people that, hey, my favorite movie is Top Gun. So it's a good movie, don't get me wrong. I liked it. I watched it once. It wasn't my favorite movie. But why did I tell people that? I wanted to fit in, right? I wanted to feel like I don't want to tell you this Chinese movie I really liked that no one heard about. So I said Top Gun. So people tell you different things for different reasons with all good intentions. So there's one book I like, it's called Everybody Lies by Seth. And he said in there, many people underreport embarrassing behaviors and thoughts on surveys. They want to look good. Even if the thoughts of the most of surveys are actually anonymous. No one knows who you are. They still say different things because this is called social desirability bias. We all have that. Right? So this is what I mean by philosophical PM. You gotta figure out what that bias is and how to uncover it layer by layer. So don't just trust what customers tell you, trust what they actually do, like the case of Netflix, news feeds. But just think about why they tell you. So now let's move into closer to actual international markets. Another cartoon of what not to do. It says, we have to go global since no one around here is buying our product. That is not why you go global. Or you sit around and say, what if we don't change our product at all? And something magical just happens. Okay, that's also not. So there was a book a little while back called The World is Flat. I'm debating still on how I think about that book, but in this case at least, the world is not flat when it comes to customer experience. People are different. How are they different? So, how many people of you heard of the three terms? Internationalization, localization, customization. Anyone can help to define what the differences are? Please.
Internationalization is going out of the country, going global with a product. Localization is taking the country into context and localizing it inside the geographical boundary. Customization is more micro. It's taking into account the customer's preferences and customizing the product according to what they want.
Yep, that's a very good explanation. I just wanted to go in a little bit more from a PM-ish point of view. So to me, internationalization means the design and development of products and services that allows for localization. So what that means is that you want to enable that Unicode. Don't use ASCII. You want to make sure that you can support bidirectional text. You want to make sure that you can separate all the elements that needs to be localized. Don't hard code everything. So design your product from day one to be able to be internationalized. Like how many of us remember old software that cannot go to a new country because it used ASCII? You're like, seriously, right? How do we do that now? We can rewrite everything. So design from day one with this in mind. Good thing that a lot of good engineers today know how to do this already, but just try to relay that message to people. Localization, you said it very well, is adaptation of product and services for market-specific requirements. Language, culture, date and time format, that's a big thing, right? Be Europe and here, I can never figure out whether it's like June 12th or December 6th, like without people telling you. So you got to do that, right? Currency, and make sure you get the right documents, right documentation. In the right language, translate it well. That's very important. So customization, to me, is more of targeting the right customer with the right product and service. And this you have to account for actually the market preferences, right? For example, the make and model of a car, do you drive on the left, on the right? That's customized for country, right? The branding, does a brand make sense in this new language, in this country? UI, UX, the famous saying was that in the US, we all like very clean looking websites, like Google as example. In some part of the world, like Asia, like the busier the better, right? You can't find anything, they love it. So like that is UI, UX differences, market preference differences, right? You got to keep those in mind. But of course, with a lot of data, we want to eventually get to personalization, one for each person, the right product for each person. But before that, we still have some time to go before we can get there. So the other three are things to keep in mind. So how are international markets different? Language, of course. Currency, of course. Measurements, right? Miles, kilometer. Like, who remembers the whole Mars rover landing problem a few years ago? They forgot to translate kilometer and miles, and they crashed into the surface because it was miles off. Like, how long did they take to make a rover that can land? But measurement was a problem. They're not small problems. That's an example of a big problem. Date and time format we talked about. See, I have a break here between the two segments. So I thought the first four are more straightforward. It's like you got to figure out this what you're doing. The next three are slightly more complex. So understanding customer behavior, understanding consumer ecosystem, and be more culturally aware. So do we think there's a lot of difference between markets? Of course. So after I moved back to China, after launching AWS, I came across this phenomenon. I'm not sure whether you can see it. Is people actually have all this flying text across your screen, no matter what you watch. And it's called just flying text, direct translation. And what it is people talking to each other while they're watching. They're saying their opinions, they're talking about what's coming next. It doesn't matter if you're watching a soap or a speech. People just chatting to each other. And once in a while, there's this, people will be like, oh, next thing is very violent. Let's protect the kids. Then everyone start typing. It'll black out the entire screen. I'm like, you just censored it for me. I'm still watching the show. So like, I don't really personally prefer this, but it's something that people start to use, right? That is cultural difference. That's behavioral difference, right? And you have to think about this when you go to a new market. It's important. So consumer ecosystem, using China example here, as we all know, there are so many companies that are not in China. For each company we have, Facebook, Tencent, Google, Baidu, Netflix, a bunch, and then whatnot.
Tencent has everything.
Yeah, and then they have everything too, right? And then also between BAT, Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, they own most of the other companies anyways via investment. So it's a very different ecosystem. You got to know that. You got to know what feature you need to have. You got to know who to work with when you go to a new market. And it's not just China. Korea is the same way, right? There's Naver, there's Kakao. You got to figure out, you have to search on Naver. If you do your SEO on Google, it may not get you the right audience, but Naver really dominates. And you got to figure out how to get Naver to give you the right bits. So it's important to think about different countries. This is not just one country or two. A lot of countries have their own ecosystem. You got to be thinking about when you get there. So another example I like to use is that, so this is, I borrowed this from Merrimaker's Internet Trend Report. So one thing is, China's got about 1.3 billion people-ish, and that means roughly about 800 million of mobile internet users. Of the 800 million mobile internet users, about a little bit less than 600 million are mobile payment users. That's huge. So the country is very, very mobile first, right? What does that mean, mobile first? Some people think, hey, we have Apple Pay, we use payment, but what does payment mean there? You can QR codes, you can go into a store, scan your wallet, transfer money with your friends, go to a farmer's market, a grandma will be sitting there trying to scan a code for payment. Go to a fish market, they give you a code, you pay. Street vendors rolling around with mobile payment. Taxis, buses, whatever. And this picture really shocked me because that is a street concert, street musician performing at the corner of a street, of a city. And then they pass around a little QR code, say tip the musician. They don't pass around a hat. Like that, my friends, is the sign that mobile payment arrived. Right?
Nobody carries cash anymore over there.
No, it's easy to go around for days without touching cash or credit cards. So why do I bring this up? Because this is what I call, or what a lot of people call, leapfrog technology advancement. So you have to think about this when you design your products. When you design your product in the US, of course, you think about desktop resolution. Sure, apps are changing. But one thing a lot of people still do is use email addresses as a login method. In a country that's mobile first, no one has email addresses. So what's going to happen when you tell them that sign up with your email address? They're going to go to a random free place, pick up a random one that they're never going to look at again, and then use to log into your account. And then you're sitting here thinking, why is my email marketing campaign not working? Right? You got to think about that. And they are not going to sit there and type in their 16-digit credit card number on a phone this big when they're used to this. So you design your product differently. It changes everything. And as a result, or in correlation with, the amount e-commerce over there is among the highest in the world. More than 20% of all retail happened online. And it's still growing very fast. And this also created a phenomenon, back there at least, called online to offline business model. So what that means, online to offline, where it's very uniquely like for the market, but a lot of things that happens online and finish offline, right? We have a lot of that here too, like Uber Eats, right? Seamless, that's online to offline. Or over there is more common, say, hey, dry cleaning, click, someone comes to pick it up, right? I want to group buy something. Let me share it with my WeChat friends, everyone who can go on WeChat and say, okay, I need 10 more people. Let's all group buy from this farmer in like far away places. Or one thing I used to use a lot is home cooking. So when I moved there, I wasn't home. I'm working. I'm tired of eating out, and I don't want to cook. So I want to eat some home cooking. Then what I do, there's an app. You go online. It will search to all your neighbors to see who's willing to cook for you for a fee and deliver to your door. So you just go home and say, who's cooking today? Your neighbors will be being, oh, I'm making this from, dumpling from this place. I'm making this fish from Shanghai. I'm making this from that. You just click, okay, I want to eat this dumpling from my hometown. And then they'll deliver to the door because everyone lives about a block away because it's high density, right? And that is completely different mindset and use models. So you need to think about how this will change your actual product and your features. So, the typical story of power of order of magnitude, I just want to talk about that here because when you think about going to a new market, maybe any country, right? China, India, Brazil, any big country, Europe, set of countries, you need to think about your long-term goals and long-term commitment, which I get to in a second. But it's essentially, is my work worth the work I'm doing? Right? Like it's the size of a pie, you can say that, but it's like VC will ask you 3 questions. Is the market big enough? Is the plan good enough? Is their team strong enough? So that's the market big enough. Are you wasting your time for a sliver of market? So why do companies today fail in China and other markets as well? I don't mean to just talk about China, but my examples were, so I'm going to say that. So I think a few problems. One is most companies today are short-term focused because companies prioritize global market entry based on profitability, right? I'm investing, am I getting my return? By end of the year, is Wall Street going to penalize me for investing a lot into this market? You know what? I don't see it happening in 2 years. Let's shift to next market that's going to give me faster return. It works fine for quick returns, but some markets are more complex and require you to spend more time and dedication. Those will logically be left behind. Or 2, companies are victim of their own past success. This mindset is something that I personally think happens a lot, is that I've done this before. I'm good. Look, I built this huge company in this country. I've expanded to country 2, so I know for sure it will work in country 3. That is not the case, right? Countries are different. You can't think that way. Centralized decision making. Local teams are not empowered to make decisions. So a lot of MNCs, decision comes back to HQ, where you need a bunch of people to make decisions. Whereas actually in market, competition is pivoting at once a day type of situation, and you takes 2 months to make decision. By the time you go back, they are long gone, right? Next, slow global processes. A lot of companies love to maintain a single platform for consistency reasons. But that slows down a lot of things and takes away all your market unique features. Local know-how, lack of understanding of local knowledge, legal or cultural, or divergent ecosystem, like we talk about the different things you need to think about. So that's why I think companies fail in different markets. Uber tried to do a lot of things right? They tried to decentralize decision making. The 3 people lunch pots, like GM, PM, marketing, just go lunch. They tried to do they're long-term focus. They lost a lot of money in different markets, right? Past success, they pivoted a lot. local know-how, they hire a lot of people, okay? But centralized decision making, I think is where they could have improved a bit. So like, that's all the reasons why people fail. Then how should we approach international markets? One, leverage, in my mind, personal opinion, leverage, but don't rely on existing products. Like what you have today is in your arsenal. If you need it, you can take it out and use it. But don't think that you have to use what you have today. Right? That mindset is very important before you go out to a new market. Understand the customers. Understand what they need. Understand why they're telling you what they tell you. Right? For example, when I was at a fashion company, in the US, everyone wants to be different to each other. So the selling point is you can pick your own designers. We have a lot of boutique designers, all different. You can pick it. You're not going to be the same. You can carry like 10 SKUs of each and no more. You'll never run into the same problem. You go to Asia, Japan, Korea, China, people want to conform a bit more. Like, yeah, how do my friends think about my dress? Oh, they're wearing it, looks great. Let me buy it too. Oh my goodness, it's all sold out. I can't buy that one. Next one, I'm not sure yet. That's a different mentality, right? Know your customers. Understand the playing field, because there may be some rules, regulations that goes against you, but you have to figure out how to deal with that when you go to the market, right? Hire the right talent and delegate. Hire the right people and let them make decisions, or at least set a threshold on what decisions to make. Speed matters. I don't need to go into that. And don't be afraid to make changes. And lastly, long-term commitment, because some markets you just got to figure out, am I going or not? If I'm going, let's figure it out. It's a new startup I'm doing. Let's do it. A few examples. This is 2 images from IKEA. They look fairly similar from far away. You know, the woman in blue feels like she's enjoying her environment, scene. But I didn't realize until someone pointed it out that on the left, you have a huge kitchen. On the right, you have a small kitchen. So that's designed for different markets, where in US, you may have a large house, other places you don't. So take the same things you have and mix and match, tailor, right? The arsenal is there. But how do you do it right for each market? And don't be afraid to make changes, because how many of you know this water? I'm sure you do. How many do you know that the original name spelled differently than what you see in the market today? They changed it when they came to the US, thinking this will make it easier for Americans to pronounce. This is the branding, and they changed it. Don't be afraid to make changes. I think they're doing pretty well now in the market. Or sometimes you don't have a choice but to change, right? KFC, PFK. KFC is called PFK in Quebec because it's required you use your French initials versus English. Or Burger King, Hungry Jack's in Australia. But they don't have the right for a name Burger King. You gotta do what you gotta do. You commit to a market, you do it, right? And something closer to home, which I think is a good example of turning local expertise into global success. So Netflix is a company to me that went from local to global to local and global again. What do I mean by that? When they started in US, so local, launched all the countries, they start doing local contents, right? Their amount of local contents, I mean, that's one of the most localized company there is. Every market's got that local content. And based on how they sell, they take the top local content and bring it back to a global markets. And now all of a sudden, the amount of stuff you have, like, it's crazy. So I saw it like on a news article 2 days ago about this line in Emmys. Netflix has 700 original series in 2018 alone. I mean, that, like, which cable network can do that, right? And when they localize, they do it seriously. So localization, a lot of them is translation. But how do people translate before? Typically, you send it out to a translation company, which will give you something back. You don't understand the language. You ask another company to double check your work and to see whether they make changes. pass back and forth, you lose all the changes, whatever goes online goes online. But what Netflix did, they solved it as a technology company, right? Key name in phase 2, you write down all the key names you want to be translated. For example, like one of the more recent globally popular show called Stranger Things is based in a 1980s timeline. So they want to make sure that every key phrase is translated as it should back in the time. And when someone does it, you put it there, everyone will leverage the same thing, consistency, make sure that it's used from episode 1 to episode 2, episode 3, it's consistent. And also, they have a global string repository. What that means is that translation is no longer passed around as a piece of paper or as a file or something. Everything is live in the repository. You pull the most up-to-date translation for the market you are in. If someone made a change, the next time it shows up, it will be new. It will be most up-to-date. Right? They are solving the problem the right way. Post Partners program, hire the best translators all around the world to help them, and A/B test everything. Right? So what does that mean? How am I going to market this show to someone in the US versus Spain versus somewhere else? Maybe the image of the show should be different. Maybe I have to market, like a more actionable poster, or maybe I should have more storyline poster. So different market have different things. You try different ones. You localize everything for the market, right? They've done a lot, as you can see. Their international customers has gone way more than domestic. So I think they're a great company. As an Amazon employee, I have to say that hosted by AWS. Yeah. So a great company. I've always liked them. So those are my quick slides today. So one of my last slides, I got to talk about how's the day like for Amazon PM. Right? We start every product with a press release. So we actually go out and write a press release for the idea we have. So like September 20, 2025. Today we launched blah, 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 blah. Now the customers can do this, this, and this. And here's a quote of a customer that said, I can finally do this now. And our VP said, of course, we're trying to do this for you. So we start from press release. And we spend a lot of time on it. Trust me, I wrote a lot of them. Right? So this is what I mean by work backwards. I know exactly what my benefit is for my customers. Press release is short. Here's my boom, boom, boom. And from that point on, I move back to a PR FAQ. So press release and FAQ. Now explain what happens to the product. So what does the product do? Internal PR FAQ, external PR FAQ. How should we do this? What technology do we leverage? How does customer buy? Like think about all the questions people may ask. PR FAQ. When that gets approved, with the PR FAQ in hand, you have an approval for a product to build. Now you go hire a team. Right? And then every other day, you talk to customer, figure out what they're trying to do, and then make sure that you relay that as much as possible to engineers and let engineers make the best technical decision. Because although I have a technical degree, I do not claim to know at all how to code, what's the best architecture. I let the experts make the right decisions. I'm just there to make sure that whatever they decide actually makes my customer happy. So to delight your customers. So yeah, that's my presentation. We've gone on for a while. So I had a few slides where I can talk about different part of my experiences, but happy to chat later if you have questions. But for now, happy to take questions.
Taking a look at this presentation, it seems like China is one of the fastest growing countries in terms of internet adoption. And also, you have got really good knowledge about China. You worked there, you're working in Alexa. So my question is, in order to stop this loss in market share, why hasn't Alexa yet targeted China market? Or is it that it's more planned and you're going to implement it in further? Because as a product manager was wondering that why not China? When Alexa is losing market share this ferociously, you have got almost 80 countries covered, but the one country with like almost 1 billion population with the fastest adoption in the internet strategy, why isn't that country targeted?
So first of all, I cannot comment on our roadmap, so I can I can neither confirm or deny anything you said. But just on that article, I think so. Amazon Alexa, if I recall correctly, didn't lose market share. Overall, it still has the market share it has. Maybe it's for that quarter, the shipped product may be different. I don't remember exactly. I didn't dive into the article, but I would love to take a look and see what that number is to understand. Yes.
So taking a step back in your presentation, how would you interpret the different cultures if all I have is my glasses that see U.S. market, and I don't really have resources to be spinning up a team, a local team in every country? What kind of methods or magic 8 ball do you have to interpret the different?
So actually, don't undermine the power of an outsider. The power of an outsider. As someone who's not from the culture, and for this person to go there and look at things, you may notice things that people there don't. So one example of product. So like for one product I worked on, I won't name the product, and then we're talking about our Italian market, and they say, oh yeah, it's very similar to US, everything's the same. And then we sent some of our US employees to go over there, and they looked at it and said, hey, all these are security cameras in front of everyone's houses. And what's that? They go, it's common. Everyone's got a security camera on their door. That's just how things work. And then that turns out to something we actually worked on because it gives them something that we don't think about in the US. So an outsider goes there, can point out the right questions, where the locals feel like, it's just part of my day. So that's actually very important. And then, if you have to dive deeper, you can start with public research, customer research companies. You don't have to staff up a team. You can have a few key hero features that you think you can leverage for a market. If you can use a few hero features to prove the market concept, then you can decide to move forward or not, and then bring on teams to do more deep dive. So a few stages, I would say.
So reach out to local firms that may do some of the user research and they may.
I'll start with yourself first. See what you can see. Some quick online research could actually be very open. So here's one thing. It's like, how do I say this? Don't undermine the power of randomness. So when you research a country, a market, we all taught to be focused, to figure out what you want. So I'm going to search this feature. This feature is going to be helpful to me. But sometimes random information can give you a lot more insights. So let's say I'm trying to write a marketing proposal for like a ketchup bag or whatever. And then I don't know how to do that. Then I start reading a documentary about a train. But that could trigger me to think, okay, maybe I want my ketchup in a way that they are in a row where I can open one bag, another bag. Maybe I can do, that will give you new ideas. So as an outsider, when you research random things about the country, like small tidbits can give you ideas on your actual question.
Okay.
So like when I research a new country, I learn about what do people do every day? How do they spend their time? I don't start with what feature should I design for them. Okay.
Right. So the obvious follow-up question then is, how do you manage that randomization? Because all of a sudden you have, you create a semi-chaotic system in which you can have lots of different and diverging ideas and visions for everyone in the market. So that becomes unmanageable at some point, right? How would you figure out what to standardize across so that you can manage the whole thing and maintain some sanity within data, within different moving parts, while still having the right conversations around it? Do you have any?
I can offer my own opinion. which I'm known to be wrong often, so happy to share. And I mean, I think there's certain level of importance of manage chaos. You allow that chaos to happen, which brings you new thinking. If everything too standardized, you can't do that. So one way, in my mind, you could do is that have standardized way to manage the teams from a higher up point of view, and let each team go out and explore themselves. So within each team, there's some amount of chaos, but when you have them collectively, there's some kind of progress, and then you leverage the progress you have, while other team can go back to figure out their chaos. It's just a thought, but there are ways to do this. I'm sure everyone has different philosophy, but I think for more creative thinking, chaos is sometimes necessary.
I heard that the product management in China is at least 10 years ahead of the product managers in the US. So I'm wondering, in your opinion, what are the product managers in China do differently in China and us in the US, and what we can learn from them?
So I don't know if I will say that Chinese PMs are 10 years ahead. I think they're different approach, and they may know the market more, and then the people here know the different market more. There are a lot of great products here, just like there are there. And I think PMs, the ones I met in China, are spending a lot of time just going out and looking at people, right? And they just keep on thinking about why is this the case. I actually find the average Chinese PM is more philosophical than average PM I see here. Maybe because, I don't know how it started. So this is not my comment. So I was watching this interview a few days ago by actually Microsoft VP of engineering called Lu Qi, a Chinese guy, who moved to China to be, at that time, the head of AI for Baidu, and since left to do investment shop in China. But he was saying that he also felt the average Chinese PM are more philosophical.